400 years ago, a city sprang from the ashes of a burned-down kingdom, as a phoenix made from water, its wings woven by the Norse winds, its feathers fathered by Odin's daughter, its eyes jewels fit for the kings, its claws fashioned from a gold orchard. From its luminous breath sprung the people.
My name is Modise Sekgothe, and I'm a writer and performer of poetry, music, and theatre.
And then a veil. Inside it, the secret unspoken grew forgotten. The streets a series of rivers leading to the ocean, where Poseidon waits.
My journey as a spoken word artist begins in high school, where I was absorbed into the world of rap music, and as soon as I got to varsity in 2010, that's when I kind of started exploring spoken word. And yeah, I think that world sort of opened up different avenues to different kinds of expression and performance, whether it was music, whether it was just a fascination with different other forms. And so it started then, and I dived into it with, I guess, a certain kind of vivacity that has not run out yet.
On certain sites throughout the city, where the people are drawn to remember the feeling, so familiar and yet so far from reach. In the Gothenburg Natural History Museum lies dormant.
I wouldn't, but I think more than anything, it's an exploration of meaning that uses words and sound to, I guess, to convey meaning and to make sense of the world, and to kind of carry my stories and the stories of the people around me, and perhaps also an attempt at archiving those narratives through poetry and music, which are essentially just word and sound functioning as containers of meaning.
The first time I saw a flawed mirror was when I saw myself for the first time. Everything was exactly the same, except it was all somewhat turned on its side.
My creative process differs at different times. Sometimes the entire poem kind of just almost downloads itself through me, where in one sitting I can sit down and sort of come out with the whole thing done. Sometimes it's just a couple of lines, 2 or 3 lines that come to me, and then I sit with those for a week or 2, sometimes a month, trying to extract from whatever, the few lines I would have gotten, trying to extract as much meaning as I possibly can from that. And a really important aspect, I think, is that it's all grounded in music for me. There's always a very specific song or a specific series of sounds that serve as the foundation, and then it's almost as though the words extract out of those sounds.
What happens to a mine when all the gold is gone? It becomes a grave where dreams come to die.
The themes and topics that I think are fundamental, and the ones that I'm most drawn to, well, in many ways, I think that it's rooted in just 2, which is love and its relationship to loss. And love, I think, on many different levels, in terms of romance, in terms of family and community, but also in terms of one's love for, in terms of passion, whatever it is that one is passionate about. And then the relationship of loss to all of that, the loss of loved ones in the context of romance, family, community, and so on. And yeah, I think these two worlds essentially are kind of the foundation of my work and what I try to explore, and the different sort of forms and shapes and angles that assumes.
Tonight and tomorrow with your brother. She has no care for your cock, but the cash that you will throw her, so she lay bare in the light and allow you to explore her, but you'll never pay her enough for her to buy back her honor. She will bring
I think
you a delight.
the best ways I've found balancing my creative energies between performing, writing, is, it's that at different times I'm inspired in different directions, which is to say that at different times I have a lot more to write than perhaps I have opportunities to perform. And so I sort of dive into the world of the creating and the writing, and allow that to take its course. And at certain times there's the balance sort of leans more towards me being on stage, and I allow that time to sort of take precedence, and to not try to be writing just as much as I'm performing during that time. So I think it's a matter of just giving each of them its season, and that happens organically. Writing in most cases happens by itself, and it happens when it wants to. So when it's all coming to me is when I listen and I sit down and I bring it all out. And then there are times when I sit down and I try to write and nothing is coming through, and that's when I know it's probably time for me to to kind of go out with what I have to share, and spend time doing that.
In a network of sex workers, all is one and the same, intermingled and unmangled, intertwined and unnamed. The city sings in
The
silence.
challenges I've faced in the industry, well, look, I think collaboration has been a very significant aspect of my work, because of how I've always been interested in poetry, but I've always been interested in the different forms and the different ways in which it can manifest. And so I've collaborated with a lot of artists from different sort of angles, doing different kinds of things. But I think the most complicated thing about collaboration is that it's collaboration between human beings, and human beings are very complicated, and sometimes that stands in the way of the work. Sometimes the work doesn't move as well and as quickly as you would like it to. And there's been times where I have withdrawn from collaborating as much as I would like to. That's at times what I've had to do. But at other times, I think it's been about being very careful about the people I work with, and kind of making sure that I work with people that I am well aligned with on every level, because I think whenever you're working together and something personal gets in the way, the work suffers as a result of that. So I've realized that more important than the work relationship is actually the personal relationship first. And yeah, with cultivating that, I found that it supports the work in the ways that it needs to. I think staying creatively inspired is more than anything staying alive, and by that I mean kind of moving and shifting with wherever my energies are pushing me towards at specific times. Which is to say, when I'm maybe when writing isn't happening the way I would like it to, I focus on sound. I focus on on music, or just kind of different kinds of of creating, or different kinds of writing. Maybe when poetry isn't coming out in the way I would like it to, I write in different ways, and which kind of keeps me constantly, I think, creating and thinking and expanding, and just focusing on I guess the area that has the most flow at any particular time, and then coming back around later when something opens on this other side, which would be the writing or the sound, or just the different kinds of areas that I work in.
It pounded them with its feet, slowly vibrating my ear ducts. It surrounded me with bliss and told me to be patient when fear strikes, to be grounded when it
I think the role poetry plays in addressing significant issues is, I think the writer and the poet has ways of saying what everyone else would like to say, what everyone else thinks, but ways of saying that in I guess sometimes in ways that other people simply cannot. I think there's a reason the phrase poetic license exists. I think to a degree it's our job to say what maybe sometimes is not easy to say, and to confront and to expose and to ask the questions that perhaps most people would be afraid to ask, and we have that license because of the context within which we're operating, which doesn't make it any less dangerous or any less stirring of conflict. But I think if one is really doing the work that they're supposed to be doing, one understands that it's their responsibility and that they should be willing to kind of encounter whatever consequences that would come with that, because it's simply it's the responsibility that you take upon yourself, or the responsibility that you would have inherited when you inherited maybe the calling is the word to use for it. The performance aspect of spoken word for me is rooted in truth. Firstly, because I seek to write from a place of truth, and as much as it's enlarged and it's performed and one is projecting and using their voice and their body in these ways, I think what's been very important to me is for whatever it is that I'm doing and I'm saying to be true, which is to say sometimes it's not so big, even maybe when whatever it is I'm saying, maybe let's say I'm expressing anger, if in the moment I am not really kind of feeling that truly to be happening in me, I try not to perform that. I try to be true to the moment and true to whatever it is that I was expressing when I was expressing the work, and so that kind of has the ways in which I put it forward, shifting and changing at different times. I try not to have it be very fixed. I try not to, I think the most important thing for me is always to kind of just be grounded in where I'm at in this moment and what's true for me in this moment, and have that be what guides the performance.
The journey of juggling breaths continues into the sinews of heaven's peaks. Where all of it goes, I can never know until I reach. The tale is written by time and trailed by my discovery. I am simply following.
I think the most valuable lesson I've learned so far is, more than anything, is that they cannot be a great artist without there first being a great human being. Which is to say that, there's nothing that can come through my work and my art that is not rooted in my life, that is not rooted in who I am as a person. And so in wanting to be, someone that creates beauty, I've come to understand that, that has to be a beauty that I establish in myself and in my life before I'm able to put it down, because all that's gonna come out is whatever is truly there inside. Otherwise, I think we're all kind of built in. There's a built-in radar that can tell when it's not true, when you're not really whatever you're trying to project out into the world, and sometimes your art can look and sound beautiful on the surface, but I think we all know that you're lying if you're lying.
Picture of the past morphing to something more advanced.
My advice is that one should receive no advice whatsoever. I think that the truth of any individual's journey is embedded within them, and I think sometimes, and it's natural for us to look at other people that we admire and that have created in ways that we look up to. It's natural to look to them and to ask them how and why. But I think anyone who's created anything truly beautiful is someone who investigated their own path and someone who found their own path. That's what it is to have reached a kind of culmination of whatever it is that you're building. Is you identified your northern star and you followed it despite where everyone else was going and what everyone else was doing. And so I believe very truly that the advice is embedded within the individual, and that the individual needs simply to follow their intuition, regardless of how weird they sound or seem, regardless of I think, of how it looks to everyone else. Because if you are truly going to create something that is of great significance, it would be something that other people would not have been able to figure out. I heard this saying, I think yesterday, someone said that someone who's a true talent is someone who's really good at hitting the mark, and a true genius is someone who hits the mark that no one can even see, and I think that's the thing to sit with and move with through your journey, whatever kind of journey.
A song unheard, a harrowing howl hoping to reach some divine ear. And so we pray.
The most exciting thing I'm working on, I'm actually releasing an album at the end of October. So I've been working on a project called The Wilderness. It's a solo project, kind of reflecting on some of my journey I lived in China for 2 years between 2000 and the end of 2020 and 2021. Rather the end of 2019, and had a great many, I guess, reflections and ways of thinking and looking upon my journey and making sense of it. And so, yeah, this work kind of tries to capture that. And so that's gonna come out soon, and I'm really interested to see how that speaks to anyone it speaks to.
While my immune system is attuned to fending off the demons hell-bent on my heart's thrashing, before my rickety jaw was unhinged by the weight of this haunting silence, before my misery...
The best way to find, access to me and my work is on my social media. My handles are the same across the board, which is at Modise Sekgothe. And so my work is on all the streaming platforms, and visuals on YouTube and so on. I think my social media is really the best platforms to get access to me and my work, and just general updates about what I'm getting up to.
Heavy hands of time, let me loose from the noose that is my youth, before treacherous time catches up with me.
Much thanks to FM, presented by Reagro. It's been really interesting just chatting and unpacking my process and my work. So much love.
I was alone, just me and the animals. It was a great feeling, free once more to plan and do as I pleased. Beyond was all around me. My dream was a dream no longer. I suppose I was here because this was something I had to do. Not just dream about it, but do it. I suppose, too, I was here to test myself. Not that I had never done it before, but this time it was to be a more thorough and lasting examination. What was I capable of that I didn't know yet? Could I truly enjoy my own company for an entire year? And was I equal to everything this wild land could throw at me? I had seen its moods in late spring, summer, and early fall, but what about the winter? Would I love the isolation then, with its bone stabbing?
In the wilderness, you shout in a million different directions. Nothing speaks back, not within all of infinity. No one is ever coming, not in any time frame within the bounds of eternity. Yours is a lonely road. Yours isn't even a road, it's a riddle, unsolvable. No one knows you, in person or in passing. You are a passing wind barely detectable. You are a fading picture that still imagines itself visible. You are what was erased before anything was written, the dust on the chalkboard. Now a million scattered particles floating about a deserted classroom. Even the floor will not have you, nor acknowledge you. You are nothing to everything around you. You are something forgotten that was never known. everything discarded that was never made. You are the paradox of space and time, for you have no place, and thus no story, no face, and thus no memory. You are a sound that sunk into the ground, a tremor unnoticed, a glimmer of a glimmer, a glimpse of what was almost an idea, a word at the tip of a tongue that never quite got sung, the murderer they never hung, forgettable at your most formidable, passable at your most exceptional. You are nothing to everything around you. You are nothing to everything around you. Until you find the one thing that is. Everything in itself. And nothing else. It. You. All of what will speak back. You are everything you have been waiting for at the fort. Every demon you discovered and fought, you yourself are the riddle you sought to solve or salvage. You are all you will ever know or be known by, because you are all there is. You are the man and the mirror. You are the word that first was. All the way to before God, or God, oh, or waiting for kingdom come. No king will come that is not already here. The king himself, the kingdom, you, yourself, the wilderness, and the crash, and the sound, and the ear.